Well, welcome everyone. My name is Stacy Glass. I'll serve as your host for this coffee break series, along with our communications lead, Sonia Elmquist. She will be monitoring the chat, the questions, and the poll. Because this is such a short coffee break, we aren't going to have time to do much Q&A, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat and we'll follow up after the session. You probably know Sephora and some of our other featured guests in this series, but you may not know Chem Forward. We're a nonprofit, science-based organization that's growing a shared database of chemical hazard assessments for safer alternatives in multiple sectors, including beauty and personal care, electronics, and the food packaging sector. We have a deep belief that when people have better data, they make better decisions, and we're here to create access to that. So let's dive into today's conversation. If you don't know Carly Klikas yet, I'm so glad I get to introduce her to you. She plays an instrumental role in leading Sephora's sustainability efforts, including the development and launch of its public chemical policy, Clean at Sephora brand parameters, and supplier guidance on sustainability. Carly invited Lauren, our director of science, and I to Sephora in early 2019 to talk about their upcoming release of the chemicals policy. We were both struck by how that policy hadn't even been released, and they were already had 3 years worth of actions planned for implementation. I knew we had a leader amongst us, and we have enjoyed learning and supporting Sephora's efforts through Carly over the last year. To her sector expertise and sustainability experience, Carly also brings the business side with an MBA from Presidio. So thank you, Carly, for sitting down for a coffee break with us today.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I'm so glad to be here with you and to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, tell us, just as a nice warm up, how did you come to this work and why does it matter to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I could be very long-winded, but I'll try not to be. So, I have always had like a very inquisitive mind and very analytical. And I grew up in the mountains in Park City, Utah, and really, had a love for the environment from a very young age. I also was a vegetarian when I was 12 and became a label reader, at a very young age. So that kind of started it all off for me. And actually my first job, real job, was working in the beauty space about 15 years ago. And back then, I really wanted the brand I was working for to do more work in sustainability. And I was really trying to get them to do that, and it wasn't happening. And I think the industry just wasn't ready at that time for having that conversation. And so I actually left the beauty space for a while. I worked in traditional sustainability. I worked in, corporate responsibility for startups in Silicon Valley and nonprofits. I was an EDF Climate Corps fellow, which is great. So I've known Environmental Defense Fund for a very long time, things like that, and I just, you tried to do more traditional sustainability work because the beauty industry wasn't ready. And then after that, I went to grad school. I really, honed in on using business as a force for good, really, and just fell in love with the cosmetic industry again, and the need for more sustainability efforts in the space. And, after I got out of grad school, I really lucked out and got a really cool position at an ingredient manufacturer called Amyris. They make replacements to petroleum-derived ingredients and other ingredients that are unsustainably derived in the industry. And I really got to see from that inside an ingredient manufacturer perspective all the issues and whatnot that are in the space. And then that company wanted to start their own brand. And so I was on the team that helped create the brand Biossance and created their blacklist and all of their initial sustainability parameters as well. And after that I left, and then I started doing consulting, and I started my own consulting business, Clean Bee Consulting, and did a bunch of work for small brands, medium-sized brands, as well as Sephora. And I, worked for Sephora for about 2 years as a consultant, really helping with the chemicals policy, the work that got into, went into launching that, and then the implementation plan. And then I eventually joined Sephora full time last year. So it's just been, I guess, a year this month that I've been a full-time employee there.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, and that led me to you and to our conversation today.
That's fantastic. Some of that I didn't realize, and I just think in your role with a big retailer like Sephora, having that ingredient and then brand experience must just be, you can really put yourself in their shoes. That is fantastic. Well, let me ask you, we want to get in today about Sephora's chemical management policy because so many people are curious about that. Sephora was the first beauty retailer to publish a chemical management policy. Tell us how that came to be.
Yeah, definitely. So, Sephora has had rigorous requirements for its private label brand Sephora collection for a very long time. Since that brand was started, and then in 2018 we started our Clean at Sephora program, which really helps clients navigate the space if they are concerned about certain ingredients, and they can look for that Clean at Sephora seal. But we really didn't have something that addressed everything, all brands, the whole assortment, and that's really how the chemical policy came to be. And it was really about addressing client needs. Clients really, are asking for more transparency. They're really getting really concerned about what's in their products and, about issues in sustainability. And so it just was like a no-brainer that we needed to do it. And so that's kind of how it, originated.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between the overall chemical policy, the Sephora collection, and then the Clean at Sephora program so we can understand how those fall out?
Yeah. So it's kind of, we like to say it's like a three-prong approach. The chemical policy is really like a baseline expectation. All brands at Sephora, we want to strive to meet that policy. And there's 49 different chemicals on the policy. When we launched it in 2019, we set a 50% reduction goal of those chemicals over the next 3 years, and a commitment to safer alternatives, which is like a very big piece that was very important to us. We really didn't want to just put a list out there and say, don't use this. We wanted to help brands and the industry, move away from certain chemicals and replace them with something that actually is safer for human health and the environment. That was super important to us, and that, really brought in the work that we do with you, with Chem Forward, as well as Novi, which we can talk about later, and the work we've done with EDF. And, they've been a strategic partner for us over the years on our chemical management as well. So yeah, I think, does that answer your question?
You absolutely did. Yes, that's really helpful. And now the policy's been out for just over a year now. And I know that you you're being very transparent about reporting on your progress with this. Can you share some of the stats on your progress?
Yes, absolutely. So Sonia is just bringing up our Sephora Stand sustainability page, and this kind of outlines the three focus areas that we have for sustainability at Sephora, which are suppliers, climate, and eco design. The chemical management work really falls under the supplier pillar, and we have a link to our chemical policy on our site, which is publicly available. And then we really committed in the policy to report annually on our progress, on how we're doing towards our goals, what we're doing, who we're working with to achieve these goals. And we launched our first public report in July, just a few months ago, although that feels like forever this year. But yeah, a few months ago, and you can go to the website and check it out. But we have reduced the chemicals in the policy by 14% in the last year, and our goal is 50% in the next 3 years. So we're on track to reach our goals. We also have some commitments on safer alternatives and how we're doing that, and shared more about that in the report. One of which is the work that we're doing with Novi Connect. We are doing a pilot and committed to 50 brands in the next in 2020 participating in that pilot. And that really means that we're the brands that are participating get an analysis done on all the SKUs that are sold on Sephora.com. And then Novi really connects those brands, or the ingredients that are flagged from the chemical policy or from Clean at Sephora, either one. They really connect them directly to raw ingredient suppliers that are, pre-vetted. So that's Novi's whole thing that they're doing. They're creating a database of raw ingredient suppliers. And honestly, I haven't seen anyone do something like that in that way. I mean, others do it in other ways, but Novi's really, really interesting and innovative, and also very client friendly and very like user friendly, brand friendly, because a lot of these tools out there aren't. There's a need for simplicity. Depending on the brand size and the expertise. You range, especially Sephora, we range from little tiny indie brands to the biggest brands that there are. So we found that Novi was really doing something innovative. And yeah, are excited to be working with them. So we shared that, the pilot that we're doing, also the work that we've been doing with you on alternative assessments. We've done 4 different assessments for preservatives, ethanolamines, benzophenones, and cyclic silicones with the work we've done with you with Come Forward to really assess the alternatives to to the chemicals that are on our policy, to make sure that they're actually safer. And I think it's like 73% of the
That's what we reported.
Yeah. So
it was 73% of the chemicals on your list now have safer alternatives available. So we're giving leads to manufacturer, to your brands on where to go instead.
Exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. And I should say, for everybody's benefit, this tool will actually come out next week, the Come Forward for Beauty and Personal Care. And what really helped to seed the repository was this work that we did with Sephora on these key areas that so many people are seeking safer alternatives. Now, we've just seeded the repository with that work, and it will grow over time as new raw material suppliers come in. And I'll also mention that you've brought us together with Novi, because we want to find a way, right now, the brands come to both platforms, one to look for safer alternatives, the other to look at more raw material ingredient. And we're looking at a way to bring those data pieces together so they can do all of that work through Novi. That would be our dream in the future. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for I think, advancing collaboration like that. Very unique.
Of course. I love when we're all friends.
Exactly. Exactly.
Innovation and making the world a better place, the beauty industry a better place to be, all of that. So
it's going to take all of us, no question. Yeah. Well, what's the next frontier for chemical management policies in the beauty and personal care industry? You've really set a leadership bar here. What's next?
I think it could go a lot of different ways, but I really do see a lot more collaboration. There has been, quite a bit already, but, other big retailers like, Walmart and Target and even Amazon have chemical policies. And, if you were to compare a lot of them, there is a lot of alignment on what's on those policies. And that's really powerful because it creates, the need for the industry to look for more innovation in these spaces to make sure that, we're replacing these chemicals with safer alternatives. It just drives alignment and really signals to the marketplace the need for alternatives. And there is so much innovation happening. There are new chemicals, new ingredients coming on the market all the time to, provide for safer alternatives. And it's just, I think it's really important that there's more and more alignment. And what else? I think that there's so many different things that we could be focusing on. I think there's a need for more preservatives that are safer. I think that there's a big conversation now with, addressing people of color and, the fact that, brands or products that are marketed to people of color often have a higher presence of harmful chemicals. And I think that is a huge conversation we need to be having right now. I think there's so many other areas that we can be focusing on. And, the more that we collaborate together, the more that we can drive this change.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's ask the audience here while we continue on this conversation. Sonia's going to launch a poll. So, what is your next frontier in chemicals management? And you're able to choose multiple options here. And if we haven't thought of something that's really important to you, please put it in the chat box, and Sonia can let us know what's in there. So what I was hearing some themes, Carly, and what you were just saying about the next frontier. I'm hearing like alignment for supply chain, transformation, transparency across the sector as more and more retailers start to send the same message to their supply chain, collaboration around innovation, equity issues. Anything else you would include in, well, safer alternatives, you also mentioned.
Yeah, very important. I think packaging is another, you know, just sustainable packaging in general, obviously is a huge concern in the beauty industry because there's so many components and mixed materials, and, you know, the recycling infrastructure, especially in the US, is not so great. So there's, you know, a lot of challenges with packaging, but I also think, you know, it's very linked to the chemicals that we're using in our packaging and how these things are made, and, you know, if they're safe for, you know, the formulation and all of that. And I really hope that the industry also goes kind of in that direction as well. Just taking that more, you know, more into account.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big one. Sonia, what are the results from the poll? What did others say? And I think you're on mute. Oh, let's see. So it looks like transparency is the next frontier for a lot. And I suppose that crosses, you know, it's not just ingredient transparency, but it's sourcing. It's, you know, there's so many different things that are in there. And next, it looks like maybe sustainable packaging. So Carly, you're in good company with others out there. If there's anything, Sonia, that you want to share from the chat box as it comes up, please feel free to jump in. So next, I wanted to move into this idea of partnership. You've partnered with several organizations, EDF, Novi, us, to help advance your chemical management policy. Why partner?
You know, I mean, so many reasons. You know, there's no need to recreate the wheel if others are doing great work already. And, you know, we really kind of took our time with this too. It took, you know, a couple of years to get the policy in place and to get it approved and launched and all of that. And, you know, during that time, we had so many conversations with different folks, you know, just seeing who's doing what, who's, you know, what tool would be a right fit for Sephora and would actually, you know, serve our brands and serve our clients well. And, you know, during the course of that, you know, that's how we found Novi, and they, you know, are very, very new. They're very much a startup. And that's also very exciting for someone like Sephora to, you know, work with a company in such an early stage too, because there's just a lot of exciting things that can happen in that facet. And they're just an amazing organization. If you don't, I know you know them, but if other folks don't know them yet, get to know them. They're wonderful. So yeah, you know, and like I said, we really wanted to support our brand partners in replacing the chemicals that are on the policy, and also, you know, brands that want to be part of the Clean at Sephora program. If they're, you know, looking to move away from certain ingredients, we really wanted to, you know, help support that as well. So it kind of all goes together. I didn't mention this before, but, you know, all of the chemicals that are on the chemical policy are also on Clean at Sephora, and, you know, they're also on other lists that we have. So there's a lot of alignment internally on, you know, what we're prioritizing. And yeah, so Novi's a great tool for that. And also Novi, not just from like a, you know, assessing your products and what's not in them, but they're also, you know, they do a lot of other things that are beyond what we're asking for. You know, they can vet ingredients against, you know, things, you know, that clients might want, like if it's vegan or if it's RSPO or if it's cruelty free, or, you know, things like that. So they're really gathering all of this data at scale using AI. which is really fascinating, because as anyone who's worked in the cosmetic industry or any sort of chemical management industry knows, it's a challenge to get the information that you want from your suppliers sometimes, and it often comes in like big lengthy documents, and it's sometimes you can't get the information that you need, and all of that. And we really help solve that, because they're developing relationships with these ingredient suppliers, and you can put your information in their tool, I believe, with no cost. So I think that's great, and it really just serves as a extra resource for us. And we're a small team, so we can't do it all internally. Also with you, with Chem Forward, we really that really helps serve us in assessing the safer alternatives. As I mentioned before, we really wanted to make sure that the chemicals that brands are using instead of the ones in the policy are actually safer. And you do the hard data behind that, and assess them on different environmental and human health endpoints. And that was, really important to us to make sure that we're, prioritizing that and avoiding regrettable substitution, which happens a lot with no list, because, you just ban this, what are you replacing it with? And all of that. So, we can't do that all. I mean, it just makes sense to collaborate. And also that's what we love about working with you, is that, this is for the industry. It's not just for Sephora alone. And so I think that's just so important, because what are we talking about here? We're talking about human health. We're talking about the health of the environment. We're talking about things that benefit humanity, not, at least that's the way I look at it. So collaboration is just, it's where it's at. Yeah.
So generous of Sephora to seed the repository with these safer alternatives, and really putting up, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of putting a value on data quality, actionability, and data quality. I know that was important as we look at the data set. You want people to say, should I just use this or not? And you get a really simple interpretation there. Or if you need to really dig in and understand what's going on a given endpoint, you have that as well. And all of that information will be available for folks who come onto the platform. So thank you, Sephora, for your contribution to that. We have a few minutes left here. We've got about 4 minutes, Carly. And in that time, I would love it if you could share a few pieces of advice for the brands and the manufacturers and the formulators that are here today about how to be a leader in chemical management. Can you share some tips with us? Pro tips?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like, number one, most important, that's pretty basic, but I think it's especially important for brands, is really just to know what's in your products, and not just like what's on your INCI list, but what's, actually in your formulation, what was used to make each ingredient, the contamination levels of certain things, and just really know that and ask hard questions, I think is really important. And then, really supporting green chemistry and innovation, I think, is really important too, if you have, the means and the availability to do that, because that's where, the industry is, at this point, it can't be denied where we're headed, where we're not going to deviate from the path that we're on. And the more that we collaborate, the more that we can get there, in a better way. And also, I think it's really important to assess the alternatives. That's kind of like a side with the green chemistry and innovation support, but making sure that you're actually replacing them with something safer, and going to experts like Chem Forward and like others who are actually doing that work to assess them adequately. And then the last is really to create public facing goals and be more transparent about what you're doing and what you're striving for, and share your progress too, because sustainability is truly, it's a journey, and it's not something that you can, that we're there's always more to do, and there's especially in the cosmetic industry, I find it so fascinating that it's, we're creating products for the means of vanity usually, or to make you feel good, or, sometimes for other reasons, for, health or the health of your skin and things like that. But, there is like a vanity piece to it. And, it's very at odds with, safety and, the health of humans and the environment. So I think it's just really important that we, look at all the issues that are truly in the space. And, there is so much good work, around ingredients and chemical management that is happening now, and the clean beauty space and all of that. But there's so many other areas that we can do better too. So, yeah. Collaborate, and there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. On that last point, on the kind of public facing goals and reporting on your progress, do you find, is this a trust builder with your clients? Is it a trust builder with your suppliers? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that the more, Gen Z and millennials and Gen Pop, these new younger generations, they're very concerned about sustainability, which, thank God, we love you. But they're really helping to drive what brands want. And so, I just think that, sorry, what was your question?
Oh, just does it build trust with your clients and with your partners? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, the more that brands and retailers really share what they're doing and share where they're at and be honest that this is a journey, that the more your clients trust you. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about saying, oh, we're sustainable or we're like doing it all, because that's just not true. It's more about being transparent of where you're at and where you want to go. And I think clients trust you more because of that, and they should. And I think that's great.
Oh, Carly, that's gold. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing all of these insights with us. You can connect with Carly on LinkedIn, and you can check out the Sephora Stands website at sephorastands.com. You can follow us, ChemForward, and our progress on LinkedIn and on our website, chemforward.org. The next installment of our expert series will feature Lauren Hine, who's the Director of Science and Data Integrity at ChemForward. She's going to offer a step-by-step on selecting safer chemistry. So that's going to be November 10th at this same coffee slot here, 10 o'clock Pacific and 1 o'clock Eastern time. And I'll include a link to register to that in the follow-up email that you'll get with this today. So if you're interested in learning a little more hands-on step-by-step, we'll have that on the 10th. So thanks everyone for participating. We appreciate you attending today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you so much.